Magandang gabi, bayan. Good evening, brothers and sisters. I was told that the food that we consume in Macau, especially the fruits, are not produced in Macau. They're coming from neighboring countries, from Hong Kong, from the Philippines, from Korea, and even from the mainland. And no wonder when we walk in the evening, we enjoy the scenery in Macau with beautiful buildings, with glittering lights, but no trees bearing fruits. I have not seen any fruit-bearing tree in Macau. Maybe in some areas, not here. Maybe there are some fruits. And in the Philippines, in our country, or in your country, those coming from the other countries, every day we can see fruit, especially now in the Philippines. This is coming towards May. This is the month. During the summer, we in the mangoes, the other fruits. The trees are bearing with very, very energetic and very much fruit, especially the mango. So it brings us to remember mangga at alamang. Mango and shrimp syrup. Those are one of the favorites of the Filipinos. Now, I can connect with our gospel today because my father was a farmer. So he plants trees, rice, and even banana trees. And that is the wonder and the effectiveness of Jesus on the first century. He can easily connect with his audience because when his audience are fishermen, he would use analogy about fishing nets, fish, or even the sea. And probably the audience of Jesus in our gospel today were farmers because he was using the analogy of planting, pruning, and even trimming the trees. Now let's settle our reflection on two important words mentioned in our gospel today, the pruning and trimming. Pruning is cutting away dead or overgrown branches to increase growth and fruitfulness of the plant. And trimming is cutting a small part to increase yield. So he says in our gospel today that the Father prunes away every barren branch for his vine so that it may bear much fruit. And he trims and clean further those who are fruitful branches so that they may increase their yield as well. So two important words, pruning and trimming. And perhaps it might also be said that faith in Christ keep us clean or trimmed or pruned in the words of Jesus. So we are pruned, we are trimmed by the gospel, by the very words of Jesus. The words of Christ, which we hear every Sunday, Sunday after Sunday, or every day for some of you who come to Mass every day, act as a spiritual antiseptic for us. The way of pruning and trimming. They constantly challenge our sinfulness, our natural selfishness, our tendency to flatter our little ego and to think that we are spontaneously loving people when in truth, we are nothing on that sort. So, Sunday after Sunday or even day after day, during weekdays, we face the harsh demands of the gospel. It is harsh. So sometimes we even complain why the gospel is so harsh. Because every time we go to Mass, we want to hear what we want to hear. So the gospel should not counter us or should not be against us when we are living an immoral life. The gospel should not be against us if our behavior is far from being good or even better. The gospel should not counter us if we are having extra relationship. Or we are using our money in bad things. We're doing things which are not acceptable even for your family, even for the church. And we don't want that the gospel will be against us. We want the gospel to be a psychological, satisfactory gospel. When we hear it, we are comfortable. We want this joy in our hearts, happiness. But the gospel is the way of Christ of pruning and trimming us so that our lives will be attuned according to His will and according to His plan. So, we cannot escape the pruning and trimming of the gospel. Why is it that Christ wanted us to be pruned, to be trimmed? Because He has a plan for us. He wanted us to continuously reflect His image. What is that image of Christ? The image of being forgiving. If you are not forgiving, then you should be pruned. There is something in us that should be pruned, should be trimmed. We should at least attune to the plan of God for us. So, brothers and sisters, just as some antiseptic cause pain when they are applied to a wound, so also is Christ's teaching and gospel. Sometimes we feel pain when it is applied to us. For example, His teaching on the need to forgive others, on the need to love one another, including our enemies, on the need to practice the golden rule, and so on and so forth. Such teaching is painful to hear when we measure them with our actual behavior. However, they act as a spiritual antiseptic when pruning and trimming is applied to us and prevent the spiritual infection or resentment of egoism, pride, envy, sloth, and so on and so forth. So, in our modern world today, we still live, it is still a must for us to live and to be reminded of the virtuous life. Because all of us are called to be saints. We are called to be holy. And trimming and pruning of our egoistic attitudes, bad attitudes, immoral behavior are ways for us to remind us that we need the grace of God because we are called to be saints. We are called to be holy. Now, if we respond to that call, then we should let ourselves be pruned, be trimmed by the very gospel of God. That is why when we go to Mass, and the Mass is challenging us about forgiveness, then we should do something about it. I remember the story of one of my parishioner in the Philippines. She was working in a bank, and she had a daughter studying in a prominent Catholic school for girls. And then one day, her daughter came very late, and she was the mother and told her a very bad news. The daughter said, "Mommy, I'm pregnant." It is not a good news, but rather a worse news, not even bad for a mother to her a daughter in the high school telling that news to her. So, she burst and she began hurling bad words towards the daughter. And of course, she wanted that the name of the family not to be tainted. It should be good, continuously good, and acceptable to the community and even to other family members. And so she told her daughter, "I don't want to see your face in this house. Go away. It's your problem where you will stay tonight and for the coming days and for the coming years. You are not my daughter." So, the daughter left the house. She went away. And the mother was so angry. But the following day, because the mother was so angry, she did not report to the office. She decided to go to Mass. And the gospel of the day is about forgiveness. And the mother was standing, listening to the very gospel proclaimed by the priest, telling everyone in the Mass that you must forgive 7 times, 7 times. 7 times, 7 times. And the mother came to her senses. And she asked herself, well, if you cannot forgive my daughter, she is my daughter. She is my blood. And this moment that she had this problem, that is the moment that she needed a mother. And so with the challenge of that gospel, even though painful for the mother to forgive, she looked for the daughter. And when she was able to find the daughter, she embraced the daughter so tightly, and she brought her back to their home. And she finally came to her senses that even though it's painful to forgive, she has to forgive. And this is trimming, this is pruning of our egoism, of our unforgiveness. And it will always be the message of Christ, the gospel of Christ, who will remind us that we need these things so that we can continue with our relationship with others, with our family members, and with God. So brothers and sisters, let us, in conclusion, let us be thankful to Christ's words, especially the gospel, His instruments of pruning and trimming. Even when they hurt, they do so only so as to make us healthier and happier and remain connected with the vine, the Lord, the source of grace, the source of energy, the source of forgiveness. So brothers and sisters, every one of us needs pruning and trimming. As we continue our Mass, let us reflect, what is that part in my life, in my experience, in my relationship, in my very self, that needs to be pruned away, that needs to be trimmed? Maybe forgiveness, maybe egoism, maybe our pride, maybe our not being understanding towards your husband, towards your children. This is the time that at least we let ourselves be pruned, be trimmed by the message of the gospel. Let us reflect on that, my dear brothers and sisters. And every time we go to Mass, let us listen attentively to God's message in the gospel, to God's message in the reflection, in the homilies. Let us take those opportunities to look into ourselves deeply. And we should respond, because the gospel is not only for enjoyment, it's not only for entertainment inside the church. We must do something about it for it to become a good news. It will not be a good news for us. It is just for entertainment, that after hearing it, enjoying it, we go home without doing nothing with our lives. We should respond, because it is a challenge for us to be like Christ. Let us all stand and let us profess our faith.